Hi, and thank you for joining us for the latest on the city's response to the ongoing winter weather event. Today's speakers are Mayor Dan Pope, LFR Chief Sean Bogerson, Director of Public Works Wood Franklin, Director of Electric Utilities at Lpnl David Mccullough, and Lubbock City Manager Jared Atkinson. After each one of our speakers, we will open it up for media questions. And media partners, please use the Q&A option at the bottom of Zoom, and I will read your questions. So let's start with Mayor Dan Pope.
Thank you, Lacey. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We felt it important to give you an update on the city's response to what has now been a 4-day and counting weather event. I want to really call out the collaboration among not only among the people that work for the city of Lubbock, but among our businesses, our education institutions, our churches, in fact, all our partners in the region. And you'll hear more details about that today. Providing for public safety is job one. That means assuring electricity and a safe water supply. That means making certain that our roads are clear so first responders can get to you, so we can get to hospitals. So those of you that have to get on the road are able to get on the road for your essential requirements. I'm very pleased with the efforts of our team. It's important for you to know that we began working with Atmos Energy over the weekend, and that our large industrial users of gas are using somewhere around 30% of their normal gas, just enough to heat their facilities, but are in effect have closed down production. That's been done voluntarily at the encouragement, certainly, of Atmos, and under the order of the Railroad Commission and of Governor Abbott. That curtailment allows us to better ensure that homes have natural gas to make certain that they can be heated. Conservation is important, and you've heard us and our message around conservation. We want you to continue to follow those conservation measures. Now, you may have seen the news around the region of some of our sister cities and their challenges. I've talked to Mayor Anthony Williams in Abilene today. We've also been in contact with their city leadership. We are sending 125 cots to Abilene this afternoon. Those come from Lubbock Fire and Rescue, and that's part of a hot shot trailer that's going down there being sent by United Supermarkets. We've offered them any degree of support that we can provide them. There's still good things going on. We gave, at last count, over 1,500 doses of the Moderna vaccine at our vaccine clinic at the Civic Center today. In fact, when I visited there right before 1 o'clock, it was at the peak of the snow this afternoon. And when I came out, I saw our Parks and Rec employees cleaning those sidewalks so our citizens could safely get from their cars to the vaccination clinic. We plan on being open tomorrow and Thursday, and again on Saturday, to continue to put that life-saving vaccine in the arms of our citizens. So as I wrap up, I want to applaud the leadership of our city. At 5 o'clock today, the Emergency Operations Center will have been up and operating for 4 days, 96 hours. Every one of those hours, there were at least 11 key personnel from the different departments that you all count on, we all count on at the city in the Emergency Operations Center, directing our response to this storm. We go home and sleep safely and warmly because of the men and women who are dedicated to our safety. Finally, please slow down on the roads. Only go out if it's essential. And keep your kids off of the ice that is formed on the lake, on our playa lakes. That is very dangerous. We don't need to do any water rescues in our playa lakes. Better days are ahead. We expect a warm weekend. The resilient and independent spirit of West Texans always shines bright in situations like this. It's a great day in Lubbock, Texas. I'll yield the floor to Chief Sean Fogerson. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor Pope. Good afternoon. I'll be speaking about the Emergency Operations Center and our response to this unprecedented winter event. We began planning for an activation around February the 8th and 9th based on the forecast from the National Weather Service. And we did, in fact, activate the Emergency Operations Center on the 12th, Friday at 5 p.m. Since then, we've been in continuous operation with a minimum of 11 personnel for a staff total of 1,030 hours, represented by supervisors from all city departments to guide operations and the coordination that it takes to manage an event like this safely. For the Lubbock Police Department, since this incident began on Friday at 5 p.m., they've responded to 114 accidents. There's been one fatality, unfortunately, on Lubbock roadways that is not thought to be related to the weather. Lubbock Fire Rescue has responded to approximately 150 downed alarms at businesses and homes that are attributed, most of which are attributed to burst fire protection sprinkler pipes. We're going to continue to have that problem, especially as the weather improves and things thaw out. So that's going to be an added drain on resources and the water supply. We started this Friday night on the 12th with the intention of managing a winter weather event. And since then, it's changed quite significantly. Early Monday, late Sunday night and early Monday, the focus changed more to managing the expected controlled power outages and the gas supply issues. So I would urge the public, please continue to conserve electricity and to conserve natural gas. The natural gas supply has held thus far, but it's in a precarious situation. So we need continued efforts in conservation to protect all of us from catastrophic failure. I have a few safety messages that I'd like to repeat. I know the mayor touched on them briefly. Please, with school being out, kids they have idle hands. They're looking for things to do. And a lot of that involves getting outside and playing in the snow. Please be sure that they don't wander onto playa lakes, because that is a real potential for tragedy that we have here. They see movies and things on TV of people ice skating and doing things on lakes, and they think that can happen here. Our ice is not thick enough to support the weight of even a child. In fact, Lubbock Fire Rescue has rescued 2 canines since this began with our dive team. So it's a really serious thing. We've had several fires since Friday night. 11 structure fires that we responded to. Several of those have been caused by outside heating lamps inside dog houses. So please, if you're going to install a heating device in your dog house, please make sure that it's rated and that there aren't combustibles close by, or better yet, just bring them into the garage. Please continue to drive safely. Stay home if you can. We're doing the best we can, and Mr. Franklin will talk about how we've treated the roads. But just because the stretch of road that you're driving on at one time is safe, it doesn't mean that the next stretch you hit is going to be safe, especially when it comes to bridges and overpasses. So the weather's been real spotty. The roads are going to be real spotty. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Wood Franklin.
Thank you, Chief Fogerson. Wood Franklin, Director of Public Works, going to kind of talk about our streets and our water departments and what we've done since we started this event. Our Public Works Department with our streets and our street crews they actually started back last Wednesday working on 24-hour rotations. As you recall, last Wednesday, that's when we started to receive our first moisture that froze on the streets. So we began our operations at then, and we've been going with 2 12-hour shifts since then to keep working on our roads. We utilize 15 salt and sand spreader trucks. Out of those trucks, 5 carry snow plows and are able to plow the snow when we have snow drifts or snow accumulation reaches 3 inches or greater, or where we can plow them at that time. We began by treating and clearing our major thoroughfares and our major intersections. Staff has been working around the clock on all of our streets, but it's not only our public works department that's working in our streets department. We also have our parks and recreations departments, along with our facility department, that have been assisting in clearing not only the roadways, but they're clearing a lot of our EMS stations, our fire stations, our hospitals, and our city facilities. What this does is, and also our civic centers for our vaccine centers. What this does, it allows our heavy equipment to remain on the roads and work to help clear the roads and keep the roadways safe. So it's a very big help. As of Monday afternoon, city crews have used over 1,100 tons of salt and sand on our roadway. What this does is we utilize the salt, and it helps reduce the freezing temperature of the water, and therefore makes it into where we can melt it and get it off the road. Unfortunately, during this event, we've seen extended periods of below freezing and temperatures in the single digits, and therefore that ice is not effective below 20 degrees. Majority of what we've been applying is our sand material, and that helps with the grip of your tires and helps pulverize that ice that's on the road and helps get that ice cleared from the road. Like to reiterate what's been mentioned, we're not done with this event. We're still having snowfall happening right now, so we're still on the road. So I'd like to reiterate that we need to be safe on the road, and as the public's traveling on the roadways, please slow down. Do not get out unless you have to. And most importantly, as you come upon these overpasses, those are the ones that freeze. They don't have the ground temperature and the warmth underneath them, so they do freeze quickly, and they do freeze first. I'd like to talk about our water department and our water system. Our water department's been real busy over the past few days working water leaks. The majority of those leaks, as Chief Fogerson mentioned, has been on the private systems, where our fire suppression sprinkler systems have been freezing and pipes bursting, and also our backflow preventions, which are on our water systems and on critical facilities. Those are above ground water structures, and just with this long-term freezing weather, they're starting to burst and have water leaks. So we've been assisting on that. We've actually had very minimal water leaks on our water distribution system, so that's been beneficial for getting water to the public. However, as the area begins to warm and as we begin to warm up, we do anticipate increased leaks in our water system, not only in our public water system, but also on the private side, as frozen pipes begin to thaw out those where they have created leaks, that we'll start to see those with water leaking. Beginning Monday, the water department worked to help shed electrical demand on the water system. We operate large facilities. These facilities are major power consumers, and so one of the things that we could do to help with the electrical grid is to move those facilities over to generator power. We moved both of our water treatment plants, 8 pumping water stations, and 1 sewer plant over to generator power, and that's diesel generators. That helped to remove 3 megawatts of demand on our electrical system, and hopefully help to reduce the pull on our water system, our electrical system. Our City of Lubbock water system is resilient, safe, and is operating with no issues. All of our water facilities are full, and we are prepared to continue providing safe water to the public throughout the future. Our water department, also, we're working right now. Today we started moving our customer service to 24-hour shifts to help assist with the public and the businesses as they start to see water outages. We're currently not seeing much construction, so we've utilized our construction inspector staffs to assist our water customer services in that area to assist in the public. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to David Mccullough, Director of Electrical Utilities with Lpnl.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin, and good afternoon, everyone. want to start just by mentioning that this is a historic weather event. We're not used to seeing temperatures below zero in this area and for such an extended period of time. So we've had wind chills of -18 that I've seen looking at the weather channel information. And of course, when you have temperatures of that magnitude for an extended period of time, it causes, dramatic increases to the electrical load. So we have seen record loads on the Lpnl system for winter usage. Southwest Power Pool, SPP, has established a new winter peak record Sunday afternoon. And so you've got huge increases in electrical demand, while at the same time there have been restrictions on the generation supply. There's been some limitations in the natural gas availability because of some well freeze-ups in the Permian Basin and other places that have reduced the amount of gas that's available for generating units. So when you have very high electrical demand and you have generation restrictions, something's got to give. And so what has to happen in those circumstances is the electrical load has to be adjusted to match the available generation. So this morning we received notice from the Southwest Power Pool through SPS that rotating outages were to begin at 6 a.m. As part of the interconnected grid. We have an obligation to do our part to preserve the system, to preserve the transmission system. And so we participated in that and did what we were called on to do. At around 6 a.m., we were asked to reduce our load by 11 megawatts. And by 7:30, that increased to 22 megawatts. So a total, and it stayed at 22 megawatts until just after 10 o'clock this morning. And then the restrictions were lifted and the rotating outages ended. So during this rotating outage sequence, we interrupted 27 feeders across our electrical system. It involved about 29,000 of our customers. And we had a scheme laid out in advance that identified the feeders that we were going to operate. And so we executed that plan based on the amount of load that we needed to reduce to meet the requirements of the system. We had this plan set up for no more than 30-minute outages, and we were able to stick with that with two exceptions. We had problems getting feeders closed on two of the breakers that we operated, and so we had some outages that were slightly longer on a couple of instances. But for the most part, the plan operated as it was designed to operate. We did have some issues with the public outage map this morning, which is a good way for the public to see what is happening. There was some lag time issues, and working to improve that. So in future events of this magnitude, those will not occur, hopefully. Really appreciate the support that we received from the water department in moving those water pumps over to generator, and that reduced the amount of load shed that we would have otherwise had to call on a rotating outages. So it provided about 3 megawatts of load shed for our system. Our local infrastructure has been solid throughout this event. We have invested a lot of money in the capital infrastructure over the last few years, and so the system has held up very well. We haven't had any overloads that would cause any problems for us. I wanted to mention that I'm really proud of the workers, the Lpnl workers that have been out in these cold weather conditions. We've had linemen, substation, and generation employees out in the elements, keeping the generating plant online. We've had generation running since last Friday around the clock. And so it's a challenge to keep these generating plants operating in these very cold conditions, but they've done a great job. Our linemen have responded to a few outages that we've had, and been out in the elements, and substation employees had to respond a few times this morning. We've also had staff at the EOC continuously during this event as well, so appreciate their efforts. So conservation is still important. As load picks up in the morning and these cold conditions continue, it's important that you reduce the amount of load to the extent that you can. Shift unnecessary loads, dishwasher, washing machines, any unnecessary appliances that you can shut off during these critical load times, which primarily is early in the morning. If you can shift those loads to other times of day, that would really help us out. So we appreciate that, your participation in helping that. So at this point, I will turn it over to City Manager Atkinson.
Good afternoon. My name is Jared Atkinson. I'm the city manager and certainly appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today. A lot of what I'm going to talk about will be a little bit repetitive, but I think it bears repeating. As David has said, this is a historic event. We do not design or build in this part of the country to the temperatures, and certainly to temperatures for the extended period of time that we've had. Despite that, though, I think we've done very well, and I want to talk just a little bit about that. First, as Mayor Pope noted, this has been a collaboration. You've heard representatives that collectively stand for about 2,000 city employees today talk about what they've done. Let's talk about what others have done that have helped us as well. Our school districts. We have been in near constant communication with our major school districts, with Texas Tech University, with various of our large employers, with industry. I think you've already heard the tight gas supplies have been very hard on our local industries, and their efforts, their reduction in that use is really a large part of what has kept us in a position that we have not had to shut down gas in different parts of town. Atmos has been a great partner in that. They have kept us informed. They ask when they need to ask, they tell when they need to tell. But really the partnership that they have with those large industrial customers, with the large employers, with the school districts being able to remain closed and stay either on virtual or on weather days, it's been huge to that. You've heard a little bit about one of our sister cities in Abilene. We've been in contact with them. We have been able to provide a small amount of assistance to them. And as you heard, United Supermarkets is who's actually going to move the commodities that we have that will help their people down to them. And that's just one of many examples. I want to give another one that you might not expect. You heard Mr. Franklin talk about, we've put out over 1,100 tons of material on our streets. That's a number as of yesterday. It continues to grow by hundreds of tons. We're out doing it right now. We'll do it tonight. We'll do it tomorrow. That's an incredible amount of sand that has to be stockpiled. As we saw how this event would extend into the Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe, kind of where we stand today, we thought, maybe we can make it with what we have, but it'd be good to have more. The suppliers generally are closed in this kind of weather. And in fact, our sand supplier was closed. One phone call, one explanation of the need. They opened their pits and loaded our trucks just to be sure we had that product and it was available to use here in Lubbock. Texas Department of Transportation. They have worked on their roads, certainly the Loop, the Marcia Sharp, I-27, what we call 19th and 4th. They've done a great job and we really appreciate them. That collection, that collaboration has really gotten us to where we can be today. I want to thank our staff. Okay, I want to thank all of the city staff. We see the police and we see the fire, and that's absolutely the first in and the last out. But we've got to have public works and parks. We see those folks sometimes as well. You don't see our IT department, our GIS department, our radio teams, marketing and communications. We have almost every city and park department directly involved in trying to keep our community safe. I think we've been adaptive. You heard Mr. Franklin talk about what we did on Monday. So I want to put a little finer point to what he said about taking your water system and putting it over to generated power. As Mr. Mccullough and others communicated with us, really the threat, the load that was coming against the electrical system and the potential that we would have to go to rolling outages. We met with a senior team within 1 hour of making the decision that let's see what we can do to back that load down. Within 1 hour, we began a process that ended in about 4 hours. And it literally did. It took your entire water system off of the utility grid and put it onto the generated power that we have. We always have had that. We continue. We don't develop that system without having the generation behind it. To my knowledge, this is the first and hopefully only time we've ever run the entire system in that manner. but it's been running that way since yesterday. It'll continue to do that through at least tomorrow. And that's helping us. And it helps you when we do that. And it reduces the load on the electric system. By extension, that reduces the rolling outages if they're called for. So I think we've gotten good at helping ourselves, and we're going to continue to do that. It's equally important that we help others. And we're trying to do that as well. We've had several of the small communities around us that have had some challenges. We're trying to help them out. We've helped Abilene, and we'll certainly do that for whomever we're able to do that. Just as important as thanking our staff, thanking all of these people behind the scenes that are doing this, I want to thank you. I want to thank the public. So we started into this event on Friday, and then I know everybody is probably used to us after every day that we have bad weather. We put out these were the car accidents. These are the maps of the car accidents. You've not seen much of that. You've not seen much of that because the public has been an active participant in keeping themselves safe. We've stayed home as a community. We've only gotten out when we needed to. And when we've gotten out, we've driven safely. And it pays off. It truly pays off. So to the public, thank you. There's just no other way. Thank you. I'm going to close with just a couple of comments. Number one, we're still here. Okay, we're not done. This is going to continue at least through tomorrow. It may go a little farther than that. Know that however long it goes, everything we've discussed today continues. It stays in place. And we'll keep doing that until we can relax and go back to normal operations. So we're still here. Cannot emphasize enough the importance of the message to conserve. Okay. At this moment, we're not under the threat of rolling power outages. That can change starting tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., just the normal demand. Weather not in Lubbock today, but in other areas was a little better, but electric supply really has not ramped back up. So please continue to conserve. Do the same with your thermostats and with your water heaters and all those things that Atmos has suggested. If we can hold on, I think if we can get past tomorrow on that part of the deal, we're going to get past a lot of those threats. So stay home. Stay slow, okay? The streets today, with today's snowfall, are as slick as they have been at any point since we started this last Friday. It's going to get super cold again. They're going to get slicker. We will stay out all night. We will fight the ice as long as we can. But help us. Stay home. Stay slow. And I know you've heard it twice before, but I've got to say it again. Please keep the children off the ice. We have had numerous calls today to go out and try to encourage those children to get off of the ice. It's not safe. And it doesn't matter how cold it gets tonight, it's not going to be safe. So please, let's take care of our kids, keep them off the ice. With that, I'm done. I believe I'm going to hand it back over to Ms. Nobles, and ideally we'll have a few questions. So Lacey.
Okay, thank you, Jarrett. We have some media questions, and again, media partners, just go ahead and use the Q&A option at the bottom of the Zoom. We will start with Sean Dillon. Does the city of Lubbock and Lpnl still have confidence in joining ERCOT later this year after the problems ERCOT is having providing electricity across Texas with this winter storm?
Yes, it's a good question, and certainly one that we expected. We still plan to join ERCOT later this year. It's a path that we've been on as Lubbock Power and Light and the city of Lubbock since 2015. Neither ERCOT nor the Southwest Power Pool, the two electric grids that the state of Texas relies on, have performed as expected during this winter storm. And like many Texans, I have questions and concerns that I feel need to be answered. I applaud Governor Abbott and Speaker Phelan for getting that started today. We will have time to dig into that after this storm. Right now, our focus remains on a safe and available electric and water supply and providing for safety on our streets and our homes and our businesses.
Okay. For residents who have had a power outage or dealing with heat issues, is there a place where they can go for safety if they have no other options? That is from Christy Martinez Garcia with Latino Lubbock.
Okay, thanks, Christy. That's a good question. You've certainly seen the warming centers that have opened up in various communities around us. Right now, we do not have any, although we have a pre-staged plan ready to open should that need arise. If there are individuals that are facing those issues right now, please call 311. We'll get you connected and see if we can help you. If there were to be any kind of an extended issue, such as a rolling outage or a loss of gas for heat, we'll absolutely open a warming center very quickly. We're ready to do so.
What is the typical usage in megawatts for the city of Lubbock, and how much over this typical usage was the city during this time?
Let Mr. Mccullough speak to that.
So this time of year, we plan on a peak load of around 300 megawatts. Over the last few days, we have been exceeding 400 megawatts. So we are well above our normal expectations for winter load. And we have blown away our prior winter peak demand by probably 50 megawatts.
Okay, we have an individual on oxygen whose power was cut off. Is there any assistance that you can direct them to or to share?
Certainly, if we can get the contact information, we can research that.
Okay, will customers get a heads up if you know where the blackouts will occur?
It's a good question, and of course, these events happen very, very quickly, and we have to respond very quickly in order to preserve the transmission system, the interconnected grid. So we don't have a lot of time. We don't have advance notice so that we can know when these steps are going to be implemented. So I think the plan that we had laid out ahead of time worked well this morning. I think we can certainly do a better job of communicating once we get into the plan as far as what the next steps will be. And we are working on a way to do that.
What other methods are there to conserve energy other than rotating outages?
The load has to be reduced in some form or fashion. So the quickest way to reduce load when you get into these emergencies where the load and the generation are going in opposite directions is to shed load. You just physically have to remove the load from the system. Certainly customers can help us out a lot by conserving and reducing loads, particularly in the morning peak hours. That's when we see the highest loads this time of year. That's when the temperatures are the coldest. And so to the extent that you can shift unnecessary loads from that critical morning peak, that would be helpful.
Okay, because this is a historic weather event and because there is a protocol on information dissemination, why did one of our city councilmen announce that restrictions were lifted on his Twitter and limited to his followers? Will you continue to assure that messages like this should be shared by the Public Information Office to avoid misinformation and misunderstandings?
Would you read that again? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't quite make sure I got that.
Because this is a historic weather event and because there is a protocol for information dissemination, why did one of our city councilmen announce that restrictions were lifted on his Twitter and limited to his followers? Will you continue to assure that messages like this should be shared by the Public Information Office to avoid misinformation and misunderstandings?
Well, I think the world we live in today, there are a lot of different ways we communicate. There were some of us that were in a meeting this morning when we learned that that SPP's curtailment had been relaxed, and likely that's how the word came out. But we're communicating today through the PIO's office. We're communicating through Lubbock Power and Light. It's not unusual for our city departments to be communicating their message. Chief Fogerson communicates from his department, as does Chief Mitchell. I think that we're going to continue to try to communicate as much as possible and as consistently as possible.
Okay, that is all of our questions. This concludes our news conference. Please join us tomorrow at 11:30 for our weekly COVID-19 news conference. Have a good night and be safe.